Hi, welcome to the College of Non-Musculoskeletal Osteopathy. So this is a bit of a talk through for the course I've got coming up in Verona on obstetrics. So now a number of you will have quite an idea about how you might treat a pregnant patient, but what I'm hoping to show over the few days that I have with you is that it's a much more perhaps three-dimensional physiological and materno-fetal dynamic that we want to consider. So I'm sure quite a lot of you have got whole heaps of ideas about spinal biomechanics and pelvic torsion and so on. But we really need to unpick a little bit about what the pregnancy means for these types of biomechanics, because they do change considerably in pregnancy, whether it's first trimester, second trimester or third trimester, whether it's spinal mechanics, pelvic torsion, whether it's limb dynamics and shoulder girdle and pelvic girdle interactions. The way that the mum's centre of gravity adapts three-dimensionally is going to be quite interesting for us to consider. Also, we need to put in terms of understanding biomechanical changes, we need to look at hormonal and fluid-based changes and how this has a real impact into tissue quality, tissue responsiveness, tissue reactiveness, so that when you actually do your techniques, when you come to do them with a woman who is pregnant, then you have to actually have a different qualitative and different intentional dynamic, because she will respond differently. So there's quite a few things as well in terms of how WONG works within the first trimester, or the second trimester, or the third trimester. Each trimester has risks that might be associated with it. Now, in a normal, a healthy obstetric scenario for the mum, there may well be very few risks for osteopathic and other manual medicine techniques, but we will go through those. But in first trimester, there's some special considerations, of course, and in third trimester, some special considerations. And there's also a lot more symptoms that we can begin to unpick as to how mum's coping, how she's preparing, what's happening with the lead up to labour and delivery, what is it that we can consider with respect to helping her through. Is this her first pregnancy? Is this subsequent pregnancy? What was a previous birth story about for her? Were there issues that she's now wishing to seek not to repeat, for example, or is she seeking for a different experience in her subsequent pregnancies? So there's quite a lot that we can consider if we just simply take the frame of biomechanics, pain in pregnancy, and say what seems like a simple talk about symphysis pubis dysfunction, and maybe a bit of diastasis, how you do some transversus abdominis muscle exercises for that. Way too simple. There's a lot more to consider when we want to understand why the person's in pain, what's led to it, what's contributing to it, what we can safely do at that stage in pregnancy, and how that reduces impact onto the baby, and of course gives baby more freedom. So definitely one of the most interesting things that I think about when I'm looking with pregnant women is this materno-fetal relationship, this issue of how the mum and the baby are fitting together. This whole story about optimum fetal positioning and everybody lying on hands and knees just to give this baby space to turn. Yes, that's fine. That's how it's all started. But there's so much more to it than that. Why is it that a baby wants to be the way up it is? What's happening with its primitive reflex development? What about its vestibular dynamics? And what about its sense of itself? How is it exploring its world, its maternal environment? How is it engaging its own development? And of course, as the baby seeks to explore, then the mother has this experiential relationship with the baby as the baby is trying to look at that maternal barrier and that maternal body. So of course, from mum's perspective, all of the difficulties in standing, the movement changes that she's having to go through, these are a delicate negotiated perspective and an interaction with the baby. So when you say, oh, pain, and you say symphysis pubis, you can't just say, oh, is the sacrum left, or something like that, or is it all the piriformis? You're going to not achieve an appropriate lasting change within mum and the baby together unless you consider both mum and the baby. So pain must be interpreted through this lens of fetal positioning, fetal sensory exploration, and this materno-fetal dynamic, so that both of them have a happy journey. And as we come in towards the later part of the pregnancy and we're really looking at dynamics for which presentation the baby is going to be at, we have to really understand what influences that, what can't be changed. If you've got a short umbilical cord, your placenta's right at the top, and you're hanging a certain way, there's no way, whatever fancy technique you think you know to twiddle with the uterine ligaments, there's no way some babies are going to turn, because they simply can't, because the anatomy won't allow. So we need to really sort of unpick some things that you know, that might be considered a bit of myth busting, if you like. So definitely first trimester issues, risks associated, issues with turning babies, and what's reasonable and realistic to say, and also as we come towards the end of the pregnancy, all these things that you're supposed to be able to do to hasten labour onset, and etc. and so on. I think that possibly as we unpick them, you'll find that you've probably got much less objective control than you might imagine as a therapist from the outside. So there's some really interesting things about the way that the hormones are going to go through, what triggers labour, what signals are coming from the baby. But anyway, that's the whole host of stuff that we can look at through there. But we can also look at this third trimester dynamics, preparing the pelvis. How is mum going to use her body in that labour and delivery, and how we can then begin to perhaps mitigate some issues that she might have, some legacy issues maybe from prior traumas or problems, or previous childbearing and childbirth experiences. All of these things add layers onto how her current pelvic dynamics are adapting to her current baby, which of course is not the baby that she had before. So everything sort of changes and has to be assessed in the here and now. But there's definitely some concepts that we can do when we understand the process of birth, the dynamics, how things move, where things move, what are they supposed to do in labour, what's going on. Then we can really unpick osteopathically about what we can really think about in terms of interacting with her as she prepares into that journey. So on the current course in Verona, then we may, within that journey of the process of labour and delivery, we may get some understanding about the issues of postpartum stress, trauma, bonding, breastfeeding and so on. But these particular postpartum dynamics we won't have time to deal with on this particular course. So the current first Verona course is going to be biomechanics, it's going to be pain presentations, it's going to be things like hiatus hernia, breathlessness, swollen legs, carpal tunnel. It's going to be then things like optimum fetal positioning, baby position lining up, the comfort of mum, what you can do, how you can help her accommodate her posture, how you can understand the impact of how her mechanics are with respect to a theoretical onset for labour and delivery, and how you're going to help to prepare as best one can, at least from the mechanical tissue perspective, about how she may be entering into that dynamic with her baby, with them both in the best fit possible, so that the two of them can then go through that birth journey together. Well, look, I really hope that you're going to find all of that interesting, and I'm really looking forward to it. So please hurry up and make your booking, and we'll have a great few days of course in Verona coming up. Thanks so much.